House and Insectarium. And while this isn't the first event that's gone on in this building, this is the first one that we've hosted. So thank you so much for coming to this incredible building that we spent the past 4 years working with our partners at the Missoula County Department of Ecology and Extension trying to build. We're incredibly thrilled to be here. In regard to the Missoula Butterfly House and Insectarium, if you haven't heard of us, the idea for what we are building, and we're ready to open in about a month, started about 20 years ago. And you may have encountered us, if you've been in Missoula for a while, years ago at one of the many tables we set up all over town with bugs to introduce people to what we wanted to do and our vision. Maybe it was at the Missoula Insectarium, which we operated for over 4 years downtown. Today, we're less than a month away from opening the dream that really started our organization so many years ago. So we're incredibly excited to be here and thrilled to welcome you. Ever since we started this organization, an unspoken goal has to really been a partner in this community, and that's equated to developing some incredible partnerships with a lot of different nonprofit organizations in this town. One of the more recent ones being Open Air. And when we first met with Stoney and Kelly, I think it was probably late winter.
Yeah.
At that point we thought we'd be open in late June, then we thought we'd be open in late July, and we thought we'd be open in late August, and yada, yada, yada. Here we are, and we're still about a month away. While we may have not been able to provide Lauren the experience that we initially envisioned, having her with us has been incredible, because I think she's really made this the most of a different situation. She joined Carolyn, our educator. Where's Carolyn? Here, right in front of me. She joined Carolyn on field trips. She learned about the bugs in the lab with Miriam and predator feedings. She probably spent time with pretty much every staff member learning about what will make this organization and our facility tick. And the time went by like that, and I was just shocked to realize that she had like a week left. So she joined me on a presentation I did to the Missoula Senior Forum this past Wednesday. And I'll just say it's been a delight to get to know her, and I feel like I've barely gotten to get to know her, but it's been a delight to get to know her, and it's really sad because, I mean, it's felt like we had a new staff person that is now getting ready to leave. She's been fantastic. All that being said, I think she got some inspiration, hopefully, from what we've been able to expose her to, which has been pretty much managed chaos for the last couple of months. And so I think hopefully you'll see some of that in her beautiful work tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Stoney. I think is this mic on yet?
Yes. Sounds like it.
Oh, dang.
You might have to be a little closer, but it is on.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah, Sean tried to show it to me, and I might have blacked out a little. Yeah, now I feel really embarrassed, but that was great. Thank you for introducing me. And thank you to the Butterfly House for having me, too. It's kind of a dream come true. And it's fun to be the first. Hi, Doug. I just met Doug yesterday, so it comes full circle. When Glenn took me with these seniors, the senior forum on Wednesday, they had like a series of jokes, but I'm not very funny, so I texted my brother, who's much smarter than me, for a bug joke, and he was like, "Oh man, all of mine were squished." That's literally all I have for you. Let's see. Let's start with that. Okay, so I was born in Indiana to a single mom who was a perpetual, habitual graduate student. So being in Missoula as a college town feels very familiar. My father was a professional musician who unfortunately died young, but I think left me with this drive to be an artist, and I think sometimes I feel like I pick up where he left off. So growing up on campus in student housing, I had access to all kinds of free resources, which I'm endlessly grateful for. And I'm just really grateful for the education that my mom encouraged me to get. Even though we were always broke, she encouraged me to go to art school. So I ended up at the Kansas City Art Institute, which was about 8 hours from home. And it's a really small school, but I chose it because I could double major between painting and art history. It's about 500 students and no graduate program. And like I said, about 8 hours from where I grew up on the Kansas City side, or the Missouri side of Kansas City. I think I spent also evenings during this residency working at Workroom, thanks to Kelly and Chris and Alexandria for hanging out with me at night. And I think in general I feel really comfortable around ceramicists because Kansas City is very famous for its ceramics. And as an art student I was really hungry for information, but I kind of felt really too square for art school. I even still feel a little square to be an artist. I have one painting from undergrad that I'll show you, and then I'm too embarrassed to show more. So as a student, I was very aware of how underrepresented women are in art history. So everything I made was really large and imposing. I was trying to practice taking up space. I was kind of a relatively shy kid. This is a life-size double self-portrait. A little embarrassing to look at now. So I finished school and I kind of grew up loving school, and I was a perpetual box checker. So it felt natural to pursue a master's degree, and I ended up at the Missoula Institute College of Art, which is in Baltimore. I kind of hit the ground running and started gathering images of crowds and population growth. That was sort of what I was drawn to as somebody who had been a figurative painter. I had some idea that I maybe wanted to be a teacher, so an MFA made sense. Though I don't necessarily recommend going straight to graduate school. I was 22 and kind of stupid. And I so appreciate my cohort for sort of putting up with me. This is just one painting from grad school. They were very patient with me. So I was drawn to representations of mobs and migrations, and I began to sort of tune into my own interest in masses of beings turning into landscape. I'm attracted both kind of as an introvert, kind of as an extrovert, as like being sort of crushed by bodies. I follow these impulses, taking a lot of hard left turns, knowing that this would eventually lead me into a circle. And I'd always worked large. Sometimes I joke that I'm a size queen. There's no kiss in the audience. I'm working larger than my body, kind of larger than my wingspan. And art school raised me to be a modernist, mainly because it was run by old white men who were of that generation. I saw all these painters like de Kooning, Pollock, Barnett Newman, and they were all womanizers, all proclaiming to paint with their egos. And thanks, guys. And I had this romantic notion that if my paintings were bigger, if they were bolder, if they were more aggressive, then I would win. So that drove me to work larger, faster, more unapologetically. So after, these are kind of out of order, I'm just kind of playing with my own portfolio here, but after finishing grad school at 24, I wasn't sure what to do next. To ease that transition, I started applying for residencies, and I moved into a 3-year-long residency in Baltimore, where I was given a live workspace within a community. So this was at the Patterson Theater. It's called the Creative Alliance in Baltimore. And it's an old movie theater that had been burned down and then rebuilt as a community art center. And it's probably the only, I don't have any regrets. I told Doug that yesterday. But this is something that I would like go back and do again. It was really a wonderful experience. From there, I moved into another 3-year residency in Baltimore. Through Baltimore Office of Promotion of the Arts, they have a 3-year program to have studios at an old school, School 33. And in general, I love to see artist workspaces. So if I can include them, I usually do. Baltimore was a great place to live as an artist. It was dirt cheap, lots of big spaces, great music scene, lots of artist-run galleries, very DIY. Residencies themselves have become an important part of my practice. Residency is just really time and space. So if you don't know, artist residencies can kind of be anywhere. They can be anything. I think Stoney's model is really amazing, these partnerships. But they have residencies on a container ship in the Antarctic. They have them on a moving train. You can do one at a whiskey distillery. So I really used them to sort of explore the world. And I get to see Baltimore as my forever home. So I took advantage of the academic schedule that I had from teaching and began spending summers traveling. Sometimes as the only American, which was that was a more interesting experience. I wanted to understand the global art world as much as I could, since art school kind of focuses on New York as the center, and I was like, that seems suspicious. And I'd travel a lot, and no one talked about New York, and I was like, okay, cool, I don't have to move there. I don't want to. I'm like too Midwestern for that. So, and then the other thing that these residencies allowed me to do was travel, see all the paintings that I'd wanted to see as a big art history nerd, and make new communities, meet new people, kind of just see where I fit, looking for that kind of forever home. Sorry. Studying art history, I was aware of the dominant male gaze, and I never wanted to further that. I figured if objectification was going to happen, then it needed to be on my terms. So at some point, I decided that I wanted a muse. And throughout history, men have identified their muse as these blonde, thin, waifish, young, white, kind of weak women. And I decided that I needed my own, but that it needed to be the opposite. So I picked Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So here, in case you don't know. So to me, he was everything a typical muse wasn't. He's an athlete, a performer, he can sing, he can dance. He's very competitive, but then he seems very self-aware. He has a sense of humor, he's very beautiful. He'll probably run for president. So far he hasn't been canceled. He's everything that I needed in the studio. So he's been with me for about 15 years, which is a really long-term relationship. So he pushes me forward. He helps me, kind of drive forward. He doesn't actually know about this. It's okay. And at this point, too, if you think back 15 years, he's way more famous now. So it's become a little unwieldy, our relationship. But he's also married to somebody named Lauren, which seems kind of rude, but that's okay. So he teaches me about sports, about war, about conflict, about gender, sexuality, and he just really teaches me about sort of nature versus nurture, and he's maybe the hardest worker in the room, right? Yeah, something to work towards. Okay. No more of The Rock, sorry. My mom actually didn't know who he was. Can you guys hear me?
I'm just going to turn your volume up a switch.
Okay. I figured if you were laughing, you could hear me, but maybe. It's my flat Midwestern accent. Try it? Better? Change? No change. Oh, Brenda says, yeah. Okay.
I need to speak it to yourself. Give you one more.
I think I just need to lean forward, and I really don't want to.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Carolyn. That's Carolyn, everybody. In 2014, I was invited to be an artist in residence at the studios of Key West. I have family in the Keys, and it's always been like a favorite place, so that felt really special. And if you don't know, it's the southernmost point of the United States. It's very far from here. And I decided in order for me to like get to know the residency, get to know the island, I needed to swim around it. So that's a 20K swim in about 8, and I did about 8 hours. Not very fast though, so. And I've been an open water marathon swimmer for a long time. It's not usually something I connect to my process, but there was one thing that happened in the swim that kind of everything sort of came together in that moment, which is that I witnessed a group of tarpon and a tiger shark in a feeding frenzy right below me, which I don't actually have pictures of, but I did grab a picture of a shark just for fun. So the striking nature of that phenomenon really stuck with me, and it drove my subject matter, kind of catapulted things for years onwards. And I got particularly interested in feeding frenzies in general. I'm kind of a control freak. Like, I don't like to be a passenger in a car. And the idea of the loss of control over your desires, like, really kind of sucked me in, and I was very attracted to the imagery. So that kind of rolled some things forward. This is my little house and studio in Key West. It was pretty perfect. Backyard. And then this is their facility too. It's a very cool place. But while I was there, my twin siblings, who are 2 years younger than I am, they had decided to move to Seattle. And I realized there wasn't much keeping me in Baltimore, and I maybe needed a change, so I decided to follow them sight unseen. So I'd never been to Seattle. And we've always been close. It was very exciting to live in the same city as them as an adult. It was very grounding. It was kind of a way for me to find my forever home. But starting over in a new city was tricky, especially a very expensive city. I was kind of used to Baltimore rent. And it's just a much higher cost of living, so I got a tiny little artist studio, and I started making this very small work, partially really influenced by that experience in Key West. And to kind of keep myself going, I got a grant to turn these very small paintings into an artist book, which I have a copy of here. And I designed it kind of as a in my mind, I was like, this is a comic book, but it has no text and doesn't really look like a comic book. I can be kind of a big nerd about things. I'm kind of a sci-fi nerd. And I wanted to give myself or my own work a backstory, like an origin story, like a superhero. I needed a backstory. So I decided that all of the paintings that I had made, like all the work that I had made, took place, kind of since 2010, took place on the same island. And it was this isolated place that only males of different species had survived on. So it was kind of like Lost or Lord of the Flies, sort of, or like Why the Last Man, or Escape from New York. And there was something apocalyptic that maybe happened, or maybe it was an experiment. I wasn't really sure, but I was gonna like track what happened. So I made hundreds of these little drawings based on that idea, all black and white, knowing that self-destruction was inevitable in this scenario, like this was gonna end, maybe, and I was just gonna track it. I was just gonna see what happened. Directly before COVID hit, I was kind of a guest artist for Furman University, which is in South Carolina. And I was working to finish the sequel, which is up here as well, looking kind of specifically at what the next sort of stage, almost an evolution, would be on this island. In the second book, I was like, okay, the men have all just killed each other, and all that's left is different species. And then I was going to track what happened with these different species. So the residency was supposed to be 6 weeks. And of course COVID hit and I had to come home. So I had about a month there and I made 15 of these really large paintings, but it wasn't really finished and it was kind of a weird place to start. So I was making like very small work to go into the book and then very large work to accompany it. And I was thinking about things like if a snake gets too cold, it'll get very confused and like maybe eat its own tail. Or it'll like try and eat things that are way too big for it to digest, like a kangaroo or like an alligator. And I was watching all these weird videos, like YouTube videos of like snakes exploding. And then using that to make big paintings. And just sort of tracking the absurdity of that. I was able to come back with some of those paintings and then have a show with my bestie, Michelle Hagewood, Hagwood, sorry, Michelle, Hagwood. We've been friends for a really long time and I can't pronounce her name. Yeah, in Fort Townsend. So we collaborated on this floor mural together and had like a show kind of right before the vaccines came out. So it was sort of deep COVID, but things were getting a little better. Just kind of one of those paintings. These are done, I'm mostly an oil painter, but these are done with gouache on really large arches, watercolor paper. So it's like they're 51 inches across and the rolls are like 10 yards. So I've gone to a residency and just rolled out many feet of these watercolor sheets and I kind of attacked them with the acrylic gouache, which is a really impractical use of that material, but the color is really good. And then I thought I'd also just mention, and Kelly mentioned it too, I'm also an educator. It's been nice to be here in this kind of benevolent education force. Does anybody recognize these animals? Yeah, it's a gooey duck. If you don't know what a gooey duck is, that's a gooey duck. I sent that picture to my mom, and she was very upset. They're that kind of clam, but it's very upsetting. Yeah. So I also teach it, sorry, there's no context for this, but I teach at the Evergreen State College, and I've been there on and off since about 2016, and this is their mascot, and they're very funny about the gooey duck. So over the past 15 or so years, I've taught at 9 different colleges, which maybe makes me sound like always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But Evergreen's kind of my favorite, partially for the gooey duck. And the students kind of also keep me real. I also just wanted to say that living in Seattle has really allowed me to keep swimming in a way that has, I don't know, like made my cup feel very full. The Puget Sound is a beautiful place to swim. I've been able to swim year-round since I moved there. And it's been a very grounding practice, and it's also given me a unique experience with the wildlife there. It's just how I usually start the day, setting goals. And then collaboration has also been a big part of my practice. This is a project I completed with my studio mate and collaborator Henry Cowdery for Oxbow in Georgetown in Seattle. So we planned this for about a year and then installed it over the course of 6 weeks. It took us maybe 6 months to fabricate, and then it was only open for 1 day. So together, our mutual interest led us to the phenomena of a whale fall. When a whale dies, it slowly falls to the floor of the ocean and decomposes, becoming a new source of life for many organisms for many years. So working with another artist that I love and trust has been really important, and this was kind of our favorite project together, bless you, to date. So we've been studio mates and friends for many years. We met working in the woodshop for another large-scale sculptor, which was a good way to get to know somebody, working for yet another artist. So we restaged this event in this space, like the whale fall, through paintings and sculpture. We were kind of collaborative throughout the whole process. But Hank is actually a digital designer and fabricator, so he drew and then kind of invented these creatures, 3D printed them, kind of related to what Carolyn and Brenna and I were talking about earlier today. We then cast the positives and filled them with a mixture of wax and recycled paper pulp, which actually technically was just blow-in insulation. Just got one bag. And then I dyed it all different colors, and we kind of built this whale skeleton together out of paper mache and painted it. Hank's creatures are really exquisite. And then I did all the paintings kind of surrounding. And we had an open studio practice, but really it was only finished for one day, and then we took it down. And then the pandemic hit. And so we took the skeleton. Hank is kind of a like one and done kind of guy, so he was like, let's just light it on fire. And so we did. We took it to his parents' beach at Dayabot Bay, and these may not show up super well, but we just lit it on fire on solstice 2020, maybe thinking we could make things better, but it was a slow process in the end. And then I wanted to circle us to what brought me to actually the Butterfly House. Even though I think that project actually is very related, like the isopods that we were fabricating, they have little friends right here in the Insectarium. They're the tiny version. So I find inspiration in maybe unexpected places, I guess, like we all do as artists. In 2021, I was reading a short collection of essays called Tomboyland, written by another expat Midwesterner. And she was writing about gender, sexuality, identity, and then also trying to find home outside of the Midwest. And she had a story about living with this infestation of moths and falling in love with the moths and being just enamored with their behavior and feeling like not lonely anymore. So just the imagery that came just from reading this little short story sparked this big set of works. This is big painting, but also many paintings. This is the book. I've given it away so many times, I don't know if I have another copy, but the essay I could share, it's online. It's very sweet, like I could read it every day. And it's actually kind of in response to a Virginia Woolf essay, The Death of the Moth, about how the struggles and life cycle of a moth parallel our own as humans. So I fell in love with both, and they just like really evoke some imagery and tie back to those feeding frenzies and migration patterns I've been sort of playing with. I also started painting cicadas. I was very homesick for some cicadas. I'm also really nostalgic for some lightning bugs. I thought y'all would have lightning bugs. I don't. So I'm hoping to paint some of those sometime soon. And I think I decided when I got here that the only thing that's left on my sort of fake island that I invented is insects. There's only insects left. And they're in charge. I don't know what's happening, but I'm working on it in my little cubicle here. And then this particular painting, I'm excited to say was a private commission for a woman who also really related to the same story that I was talking about and is a supporter for the arts in Seattle. So we worked together to make this for her home, and I hope she's happy with it. She's nice. I also fell in love with atlas moths, right, Glenn? So big. Hopefully coming to a butterfly house soon, eventually. And there was one, I think there was one found at the Costco in Kirkland, which is the headquarters. And I just like them sort of hitching a ride on a big box, at a big box store. And if you don't know, they disguise themselves as snakes to ward off predators. They'll even like fall to the ground and like pretend like they're a snake, and like wriggle around. So thought that connected to my snakes. Really, I'm just like attracted to things that I think are sort of like sexy imagery. So I got really seduced by spotted lanternflies, not really knowing that they were invasive. So they're invasive in my paintings, I guess, but I think they're kind of sexy, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of the end of sharing a little bit about how I got here. I wanted to give some shout outs to the team in particular. This is Carlos. No, wait, that's not Carlos. I'm sorry, that's Rosie. Carlos is next. So I thought I'd give a shout out first to Carolyn, who's the education director, for taking me on my pre-K school visit. I love your imitation of small children reacting to the animals. I'm also sorry that I didn't know that you weren't a bug ambassador. The bugs are the ambassadors. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not that Carolyn is the bug ambassador. And then I think I attended a volunteer training, which was really interesting. It really made me appreciate the service-oriented culture of Missoula. Yeah, I guess you guys all know that, but it was impressive. There was like 4 groups of volunteers that came through all week, and they were all like just ready to go. I think if I had been able to be here when there were butterflies, I would have been here all day Friday, pinning chrysalids with the nicest volunteers. Yeah, someday. Special thanks to Miriam, lead animal keeper, for letting me tag along to predator feedings and answering my many dumb questions. I don't know if this is going to make sense, but there's a lot of molts that were actually, there's tarantula molts kind of sitting next to my cubicle, and I really thought they were like plushies. Like I thought they were beanies. Or not beanies, beanie babies. And I just thought it was merchandise that they gotten like a little rough with, like messed with, or like toys. But they're molts. I thought they were dead tarantulas secondarily, and then I was like, oh no, I don't know anything. So thanks to Miriam for being very patient with me. Thanks to Morgan, who I think is probably taking care of Pippin. Morgan's the marketing director and events coordinator. She introduced me to the peacock jumping spider, which led me to the peacock moth. So I appreciate her enthusiasm. Special thanks to Stacy, operations director, for giving me my first cubicle at age 40. It's been an honor to be right in the mix with you all. Yeah, it's very cool. I think I would keep my headphones on, but then still be listening to funny conversations happening around me. Special thanks to Rob, lead horticulturalist, for wearing that shirt today. It's my favorite color. But also leading a very adventurous life and sharing a little bit with me about it. So this is what the Butterfly House looks like when I first got here. And I'm excited if we get a peek on it. I'm guessing the plants are going to be much taller, but I thought it was kind of cool to see the height they were at the first day. But many thanks to Brenna. Wait, where's Brenna? Oh yeah, sorry, Brenna. Bug Wrangler, official title, not official title. For many hours of content on social media leading up to my residency, and afterwards, please follow their Instagram, and for introducing me to the parasitoid wasps. And in particular, thanks to Jen and Glenn for starting the space, inviting me. I don't know if it's nerdy, but this is my favorite. The Death's Head cockroach, which is too shy to come today. But he's my favorite. So thank you for having me and partnering with the open air. And then big thanks to Stony and Kelly and Keisha, too. And my housemate Hannah and Rocky and everybody. So thanks for listening. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I have time for questions, but I went a little bit longer than I planned, so.
Does anybody have any questions for
Rocky does.
Oh, sorry.
First, I just want to say this was like amazing to see your work and how prolific you are, and your work's very beautiful. And it's like inspiring to see. But I just want to I had a question about Dwayne The Rock Johnson, not Vin Diesel.
Oh, yeah. They used to make out in my paintings. But then I think they had a breakup as friends. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
I was wondering, there were a lot of words like attraction and seduction and sexy, and then Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Muse, or the Goo Ducks. I wanted to just hear if you are down to talk about where does sexuality enter your work, in the dirty side or biological side?
Yeah, biologically, these moths are mating. That's what they're doing. Some people would know that, but some people are like, oh, cool. They mirror each other, Lauren. I'm like, yeah. Okay, so Rocky's question is about sexuality, in case anyone didn't hear that. I think it's still about turning expectation on its head a little bit, like that, being raised by all these bro modernists and being very annoyed with paintings of women and art history and objectification and expectation for women. And then also I played a lot of sports as a kid. I played soccer and rugby, which led me to swimming, and I love watching grown men just obliterate each other on TV, MMA. I think the wrestling, it's also absurd to me. It's equally sexy and a little bit silly, and I feel like they actually want to be doing something else. But instead they're getting greased up, and I don't know, it just seems really funny to me. But I also think it's hot, so yeah. I'm checking the audience to make sure this is okay. No. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You were probably fine until someone pointed you out, right? Yeah, okay. Yes, maybe I'll see if I can PG answer that in another way. Go ahead, sorry, Stony.
Could you speak to your prolificness, your compulsion to work? What is that for you? How does that show up?
Sometimes I say it's Catholic guilt, but that's sort of rude. I used to call it my death drive. I'd get up in the morning thinking I was going to get hit by a bus. And so I was I better get a lot done today. That seems very grim. And I don't know where that comes from. I don't know. A lot of funerals maybe, but yeah. Prolific. I don't know. I want painting to be the last thing I do every day. Yeah. It's still the thing I'd most want to be doing. Yeah, Stony.
So can to piggyback off that, can you speak to your time here? How did you you're kind of in in the middle of a state of flux here, but clearly there's elements of inspiration that are tethered to your practice. How did you kind of flesh that out for us? How do you spend your time?
Yeah. At home, I like to swim first thing, but here I really wanted to be in the cubicle in Fortlandia as soon as possible. And then I really wanted to work at night at workroom with Alexandria and Chris, and like feed off the energy of the ceramicist and balance that kind of studio energy with the energy of the controlled chaos of the Butterfly House. And then also like enjoy my time with the artists here. So I think it was a balance. My truck also broke down. You know, it was like a little bit of chaos. Just a different model too. Some residencies are like, I painted from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day, nonstop. And it was all about sort of volume and getting lost in the actual work. But I wanted to be able to like go over to Doug's lab at a moment's notice or go to the bookstore. So yeah, talking in circles a little bit, but yeah, it's been good.
Carolyn, do you have any next adventures or other residencies that you have your eye on or new?
Yeah, can I jinx something?
Do it.
So Hank and I applied for a residency at Glacier National Park together. Partially, I mean, I really would like another artist with me, but also I'm hoping that the grizzly bear would eat him first, which really doesn't seem like it would happen, but I think it would eat me. But we made it through like the third round. It's like Battle Royale. So they have like many levels of review process, and we made it through a few, but there's only 4 spots, so I probably just jinxed it. So that's something. And then I was really excited. I found out the day that I got here, I got that Macmillan Fund grant. So that allows some fun things to happen. Yeah, but that was like a crazy thing too. It was like the day before I drove out here, it was like a 7-hour Zoom interview for that grant, which, I mean, there's a lot of grant writers in the room, right? Like people applying for grants. Do you have to do a 7-hour Zoom interview? No, it was brutal. So, yeah, not that much money either, but it was good. Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. There's some bugs up here. Oh yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I'm wondering if you have, I'm sure there were many things you learned in your experience here, but could you pick maybe a real standout, for you, a very standout, like some secret knowledge that insects are working, that you've observed or imparted to you in some way, creatively or through observation, or innate wisdom from the insect realm that you could share with us?
Yeah, I think there's actually a lot of things I learned. I would like come home every night and keep Hannah up late telling her weird facts about insects. I'd be like, okay, so Miriam told me about how at the 7th segment, that's where the millipedes and share their sperm. And I was like, cool. But Doug told me a cool story yesterday about like, I don't think I can do the dance of the like leaf insect, but like how they pretend to be leaves and how their kind of bottom shake to pretend to be leaves. And then I was like watching them, and then watching, I think that was what was eating its own molt yesterday. And then Brenna showed up and it was eating its own molt, and Brenna was like, I think it'll like this raspberry bramble better. It was like stuff like that I thought was really fun. There was also some mating yesterday, and the lady was definitely eating her way through the whole adventure. She was just like face first in some leaves. Anyway, I have it on video, so. Thank you, that was a good question. There are some bugs up here too. I don't know if everybody got to play gently with the insects. And then I don't know if Glenn and Jen maybe could take us on a little meander. It's about 5 o'clock. I don't know. Am I in charge?